Welcome to Healthy Mama Hacks, a weekly mini podcast where I share my best tips for hacking your healthy mama life with simple tips for easier eating, cooking, and living a healthy mama life in 20-ish minutes, about the time it takes you to fold a load of laundry. So let's do this, mama. Hey friend, welcome back to the Healthy Balanced Mama podcast. I am so excited today to bring you part 2 in my meal prep series. Last week, we talked about the 4 P's of meal prep, and I gave you a place to start when it comes to learning how to meal prep in a way that works for you and your family. If you didn't listen to the last episode, I will put it in the show notes. I highly recommend that you listen to it because today's episode is going to play off of one of those P's, prioritize your needs or prioritize your prep. This is a really important step when it comes to meal prep because I'm not about just prepping everything ahead of time. I want meal prep to work for you and your life and help you to create your own convenience. And I don't think spending hours and hours in the kitchen at the beginning of the week is convenient, even though it might make things easier during the week. I want to make it easier for you overall. So I don't want prep to feel crazy daunting. Yeah, you might not want to take an hour or so out of your weekend to do your prep, but the benefit is that yes, it will save you a ton of time during the week, but you can pop on a podcast or some music, grab a kombucha or a glass of wine and enjoy that prep time. Feeling like you have to prep for like 4 or 5 hours on the weekend feels like a job. That was literally my job for years. And so I don't want this to feel like a job or a chore. It might not be the number one thing you want to do, but we're going to make it fun. The whole point of meal prep is to create your own convenience. So in order to make your meal prep most efficient and work the most for you and your family, we need to prioritize your prep. So just to do a little bit of a recap of last week's Healthy Mama Hacks episode, the 4 P's are number 1, you need to plan your meals before you start to figure out what you're going to prep. Way before you even prep, but you have to plan your meals. You need a place to go. You need a direction with your prep. And then you need to prioritize your needs, which is what we are going to dig into today. Then you're going to need to plan your prep, which is what we are going to dig into more next week, the order of operations of prep. And then finally, you need to prep your meals. And that includes finding a time to prep that works for you. So today, we're really going to focus on prioritizing your prep. I went a little bit into this in last week's episode, but I really want to help you to figure out where to start when it comes to meal prep and what would be the most beneficial for you when it comes to prepping meals ahead of time. It is August, and so for many of us, this is back to school season. It's the time where many of us moms are like, okay, I've got to start to reel in some of the craziness of the summer, some of this relaxed vibe of the summer, and maybe bring in some more routines. But I don't want this to feel restrictive, like I've been saying over and over again. So how we can do this is by prioritizing what is going to actually help us in this upcoming season of our lives. So like I mentioned, in order to prioritize our prep, we need to start by planning our meals. But when we plan our meals is when we can start determining what our priorities are going to be when it comes to prepping ahead of time. So there are 3 questions that I want you to ask to determine both what type of meals you're going to plan and the style of prep you want to do and what prep you want to do in order to make your week easier. So the first question is, where do I need the most support? Meal prep is about creating your own convenience. So where are those times where you already rely on convenience foods and you might not want to? Maybe you want to bring in more nutrient-dense meals for, say, breakfast to keep your kids full and fueled for school or to keep yourself full and fueled for work. Or maybe it's dinner time. You find yourself grabbing a frozen pizza or heading for takeout more often than you'd like. Both of these things are 100% okay. You all know that I'm about balance, intuitive eating, and flexibility. But if you're doing it several times a week and it's starting to become a habit that doesn't feel great for you, then maybe something needs to change. And that's where meal prep can really help you with that. If you're feeling like you're constantly relying on convenience foods, let's learn how to create your own convenience. So the first question, where do I need the most support? The easiest way to figure this out is, where would convenience foods help me, or where am I turning to convenience foods already? Another way to put this, or another way to consider this, is what are the busiest times of the day for me, and what are the busiest times of the week for me? And I guess I should say that just because it's busy doesn't mean your meals aren't working for you. But oftentimes when we are the busiest, that's when we tend to rely on the convenience options, because we just feel like we don't even have the time to get meals on the table. So what are the busiest times of the day? For a lot of moms, breakfast is a hard time of the day. And for you and your family, you might not care so much about breakfast. Breakfast might be something quick and easy on the go. It could be a bar or a smoothie. That's my breakfast most mornings, is a nice smoothie, because it takes absolutely no time at all. Okay, it takes like 2 minutes. And then I'm out the door with the kids. And so that works really well for me. That's my convenience food in the morning. But as we get into the school year, I tend to prep ahead of time more for my kids. In the summertime, we keep it really easy. They do not like a hot breakfast at all in the summertime. Sometimes they like smoothies like I do, but more often than not, they don't. So we stick to things like yogurt or toast with berries or cereal. Yep, we keep it really simple in the summertime. But I do want them to be a little bit more fueled and full during the school year, because they don't have as much flexibility around like eating lunch early or having a nutrient-dense snack or something like that as they do here when they're home with me. So I'm a little bit more intentional about their breakfast during the school year. So things like baked oatmeal or egg cups, those type of things, having those ready in the morning and having those prepped. Even energy balls are a really great and easy thing for them to have. Muffins that are rich in protein and fiber. Those options are really great. Oh, breakfast quesadillas. They love breakfast quesadillas. These I can keep in the freezer waffles. Okay, I think I need to start a list of these things, and I will put them in the show notes. I will put some of my favorite meal prep, breakfast, lunch, and dinner options in the show notes. There's always going to be downloadable show notes for the Healthy Mama Hacks episodes. So you can click the link in the show notes and get that delivered to your inbox, and I will link to any of these that are on my blog or the recipes that I use. Hey mama, jumping in here for just a quick sec, because if you love this series on meal prep, you are going to love learning from me in person, sort of, in this month's online back-to-school meal prep class. In this hour-long meal prep adventure, you'll learn pro tips from me, a former personal chef and busy mama, on how to prep ahead for the week in just an hour, setting yourself up for an easier, healthier, and more delicious week. Best of all, you'll be learning live, which means you're not only watching me cook, you can also ask questions and interact with me, and you'll end class with a fully prepped breakfast, lunch, and snack, as well as ingredients for 4 days of dinners. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Head to healthymamakris.com/classes to join. Space is incredibly limited, so don't wait to grab your spot and join us. That's healthymamakris.com/classes to join me in my back-to-school meal prep class. So breakfast is an important time for our family, and making sure we have something prepped ahead just because it is a busy time of the day. For many moms, especially stay-at-home moms, I think lunch can be a struggle, especially for them. Maybe not so much for the kids. I know for my kids, lunch is pretty easy to throw together. As long as I do some prep, like chopping some veggies and some fruit ahead of time, I can just throw together a quick lunch plate for them. Really easy. But yes, the prep comes into play there, or creating lunches for school. Things that are prepped ahead, like the fruit and the veggies, and then having quick and easy things to throw together a main are really simple for me, and I don't stress a lot about that. I just make sure that I have a fruit and a veggie ready to go. But for me, oftentimes I will prep a lunch because for me, especially going between things like, depending on the time of the day, going from work to kids and back and forth. That's more summertime. It's going to change completely in the fall when my kiddos are in school much longer because they're both moving up in grades, which is crazy to me. But oftentimes that middle of the day time, I need something quick and easy to grab. So I love making something like a chicken salad and throwing it over greens. I love leftovers as well, but even just having salad greens chopped up and ready to go so I can throw a quick protein on top, whether that is the chicken salad I've made ahead of time or it's just something simple like tuna and a good salad dressing and a bunch of random vegetables. I have a whole episode on how to create a satisfying salad, and I always follow that sort of a template. Sometimes it's fancier than other times, depending on how much time I have. I also love wraps, so having things like that on hand for wraps, so I'm not just going to my favorite health food store and grabbing a wrap there, which is honestly my favorite thing to do for lunch, but I try not to do that more than once every couple of weeks because my budget does not allow for that. So, where do you need the most support? What times of the day or times of the week are busiest for you? When it comes to dinner time, there's probably at least one evening that you can identify where that evening is kind of crazy. You might have more than one activity stacked next to each other. And when you get home, you're like, okay, we need to eat dinner right away and get showers and bedtime and all of these things rolling, or else we're all going to be up until 10 p.m. and then mama has no time to relax. And that's not the type of life I like to live. But you know what? It happens. And we all have those days. So how can you create convenience in that day during the week? Say it's your Wednesday nights are crazy. So Wednesday night, how can you add something to your meal plan? Let's go back to the meal plan. How can you add something to your meal plan that is going to create some convenience for you? Maybe it's a quick 20-minute Instant Pot recipe that you've had prepped ahead of time, so you just have to throw everything in the Instant Pot, turn it on, and dinner is ready soon. One of my favorites for this is it's not orange chicken. Maybe I need to make an orange chicken recipe. It's my chicken and broccoli. It's kind of like an Asian style chicken and broccoli recipe. And the ingredients are really, really simple. I use chicken thighs and broccoli. And if I have those ready to go in the fridge, then you just whisk together a sauce and I'll make that in the Instant Pot. Super quick and easy. The chicken cooks up, I add the broccoli, and I cook some rice on the side, and that's an easy dinner that everyone loves. It's a crowd pleaser. So that's something that we make often when we need a quick easy night. And then slow cooker recipes win as well for nights where, we're going to be a little bit late. And if I'm home, then I will put something in the slow cooker midday. Or if it's a really long day, you can put something in the slow cooker in the morning. Just make sure you put it on low. So there's a lot of options there. So what would help you to create your own convenience? Or maybe just go into your list of family favorites and what is going to be the quickest, easiest dinner for tonight. One of our favorites is DIY pizzas on flatbreads. So we'll get flatbreads and we have some sort of a sauce. Usually for me, it's pesto because I don't love a lot of tomatoes. And so the kids, it's tomato sauce, cheese for all of us. And then we add our own toppings. It's like a 10-minute dinner when all in, including putting the toppings on, popping it in the oven. I was going to say the refrigerator. No, if you pop it in the refrigerator, that's dinner for tomorrow, not tonight. It's early in the morning, you guys. So let's go back. When do you need the most support? What are your busiest times of the day? And then what are your busiest times of the week? The next question that you want to ask is, how much time do I have to prepare meals? We talked about those busiest times of the day, the busiest times of the week, right? So there are going to be some nights where you don't have as much time to prepare meals. But let's be realistic here. Do you have 30 minutes to prepare a meal, or do you have 10? And, part of me is like, okay, maybe you can find a little bit of time earlier in the day to prep, but I don't want to stress you out with that. Many of us have grand plans, myself included, to prep earlier in the day. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do a little bit of prep at lunchtime. And then when it comes to dinner time, everything will be ready to go and easy. This is why I prep at the beginning of the week, because I will forget about it. I won't have the time. I'll be loading the dishwasher and then go, oh my gosh, we have something else to do. So I can't continue to do this. So I can't prep. And then it's 5 o'clock and I'm rushing. So I want you to be really realistic with how much time you have in the evening to prepare your meals. The evenings where you have less time, or if you have less time overall, that is where you want to focus your prep, because prepping ahead of time is going to save you a ton of time during the week, especially if you are prepping the items that take the longest. This is proteins and produce. Proteins are going to take the longest to cook, unless you're using an Instant Pot, but even if you're using an Instant Pot, you're still talking for anything, when it comes to pressurizing and things like that, you're talking at least probably, minimum 15 minutes. So your proteins are going to take the longest, whether they're plant-based proteins. I guess if you're doing like a canned bean, that might take a little bit less time. But your proteins are going to take the longest, and then chopping vegetables is also going to take a ton of time. And if you're trying to eat more nutrient-dense, nourishing meals, we all know that vegetables are the best way to do that. And so we want to have veggies within our meals. And there are some veggies that are quicker and easier than others. You can throw baby spinach into pretty much anything and it wilts down and you've got a veggie in there. But we probably don't want to be eating baby spinach every single night. That gets a little bit boring. So how much time do you have to prepare meals? Which days of the week do you have less time to prepare meals? And how can you create your own convenience by prepping ahead for those nights or those times of the day? But when I'm talking about how much time you have to prepare meals, it's typically dinner time, but the same thing goes for breakfast and lunchtime. So for breakfast time, that's another area where it's like, I don't have any time in the morning because it's just crazy getting things ready in the morning, and my kids just end up grabbing cereal, and then, they're starving at school at 9 a.m. and snack isn't until 10, and then lunch isn't enough for them. And it's this like endless cycle. So how can you give your kids something that's going to keep them a little bit more full? And how can you give yourself something that's going to keep you a little bit more full, right? Going back to some of those examples that I gave earlier. So first question, where do I need the most support? Second question, how much time do I have to prepare meals? Be realistic with this. I would give yourself less time rather than more time, because if you have more time, then it's just more time to relax. But I don't want you to give yourself too much time and then be rushing, like decide that you have a half an hour every night, but you really don't. You really have like 15 minutes and then have everything feel rushed. I want this to feel easy for you. And then the third question is, how much time do I actually have to prep? So where can you carve out an hour? That's what I recommend for most women. An hour is all you need to prep ahead at the beginning of the week. Sometimes it's more like an hour and 15. Sometimes it's less, like 30 to 45 minutes. That's about the time that I take to prep each week, about an hour, give or take about 15 minutes. So how much time do you actually have to prep? Now, if your plans are that you want to start batch cooking your dinners for the week, then you're going to need more than an hour. Even with the magic of Instant Pots and air fryers and all of those things, you're not going to get 4 or 5 meals done for the week in an hour. It's just not going to happen. Now, you could prepare like slow cooker bags, but in my opinion, I feel like doing that several times a week gets a little bit boring. So that might work for 1 or 2 meals, but we want some variety, right? So how much time do you have to prep? And within that, you can go, okay, I have an hour to prep. So if you have an hour to prep, then you can go, all right, where do I need the most support? How much time do I have to prepare meals? So which are the meals where I could be really helped in chopping some vegetables or prepping some protein ahead of time? Get those things done first in your prep. Write those things down, and anything else you might want to do, then you can add that in as, it would be great if I had some time to make energy balls. But if your busiest times of the day are breakfast and Tuesdays and Thursdays are just crazy, so how can you make something for breakfast? So let's say we're going to bake some egg cups. So you're going to chop all the veggies for the egg cups, whisk it all together, pop it in the oven. That's going to take the longest. So that takes, 20, 25 minutes in the oven. Then you're going to prep some vegetables and a protein in the Instant Pot. And then you've got everything ready for breakfast, Tuesday and Thursday dinner. Super easy. Your week is made that much easier. See how we don't have to prep every single meal to make your week easier? This doesn't have to be something that feels crazy stressful. It's just about making your week feel easier and taking the burden off of things. So that's where I want you to start with your prioritization. If you are brand new to prep and this feels a little bit daunting to you, even an hour feels daunting to you, I want you to ask, what is one thing that I can do to make meals easier this week? You can also consider doubling up, okay? So how can you prep once, cook twice? Even if you're doing this throughout the week, you can, when you're creating your meal plan, I always recommend, this is one of my best tips, choosing recipes or meal ideas. They don't have to be recipes, but meal ideas with similar ingredients. This doesn't need to be every single week, like you only use the same exact vegetables or the same exact proteins. This is about going, okay, the shredded chicken in the Instant Pot is one of my favorite things, so I love coming back to that. Beans are another great option because they're so versatile. So how can I make some shredded chicken in the Instant Pot? And what are all of the recipes or meal ideas that I could use that chicken for throughout the week? You can use that in 2 or 3 different meals, and it can be completely different. You can do a baked sweet potato that's topped with barbecued chicken and a slaw one night. And then the next night you can do chicken soup. Those are completely different. The next night you could do shredded chicken tacos. Completely different. 3 meals with chicken. You could do the same thing with black beans. You can make the exact same 3 meals. I don't know if I would do that kind of soup with black beans. You could definitely do a black bean soup though. So you can use the same protein in several different meals and make it completely different. This isn't about making the same meal 3 days in a row. But, if you have a smaller family and you don't mind leftovers, you could cook once, have leftovers the next night. Cook once, have leftovers the next night. So consider doubling up. So cooking once and eating twice. So either the whole meal or an ingredient. And just ask yourself, what's one thing I can do to make meals easier this week? Typically, I recommend this is either a protein or chopping vegetables. Those are typically the best things that you can do to make your week easier. It might just be chopping that fruit and those vegetables for lunches in the morning, so prepping your kids' school lunches isn't as crazy. That could be all you do, and that just makes your life feel easier. There are no rules to meal prep. This is about making it work for you. I know I've said that a million times, but I'm going to say it over and over again because I don't want this to feel daunting to you. I want it to feel freeing. And then after we've asked these questions, okay, after we've asked where do I need the most support, how much time do I have to prepare meals, how much time do I have to prep, we've created our meal plan, that's when we want to go into choosing our prep style. Because like I keep saying, everyone's different when it comes to prep. Everyone is going to have a different prep style that resonates with them. And in different seasons, a different prep style might work for you. Now, I go through all 3 of these in length in my meal prep course. So I'm just going to go through these really briefly. But there are 3 main prep styles. There's ingredient prep, there's batch cooking, and there's a combination of the 2. Most women that I work with lean towards a combination. I lean towards either ingredient prep or a combination because that's what works for my life. But I know some women that batch cooking works really, really well for them because they're crazy busy and they just literally don't have time to cook. So ingredient prep is exactly what it sounds like. You are just prepping ingredients for the meals. There may or may not be a little bit of cooking involved in this, like that Instant Pot shredded chicken or a chicken in the slow cooker or beans in the Instant Pot or something like that. But more often than not, there's really very little cooking involved for this. You're just prepping ingredients. Batch cooking, you are prepping full meals. This doesn't have to be the entire week. This could just be 2 or 3 meals, but something to get you through the week. Or this could be batch cooking all your breakfasts for the week, or preparing all of your breakfasts for the week. It doesn't always have to be cooked. All your breakfasts and lunches for the week. This, again, there's no rules with this, but it's actually preparing the full meals. And then there's a combination, which is typically what I do, what a lot of women do, where it's mostly ingredients, but then you might batch cook a couple things or batch prep a couple things. So the example that I gave earlier of maybe getting those egg cups ready for breakfast and then just having some ingredients prep for a couple dinners, that's combination prep. And it can be that simple. It can be that simple. I don't want this to feel crazy daunting to you. I want this to feel doable and simple. And last but not least, I want you to not be afraid to experiment. If you try a style of prep that works for a while and then it stops working or your life gets busier, then try a different style. You can always switch things up. You can always change things. If you start batch cooking and it feels really good during the week, but it's really stressing you out in the weekend, maybe lean to more of a combination prep style and see how that works for your schedule. If you're just prepping ingredients, but you find yourself still like freaking out in the morning, like there's nothing for breakfast and we're running out the door, then maybe lean to a combination style and get something ready for breakfast. Or maybe you're doing a combination style and you find yourself going, I don't actually think I need this batch cooked item during the week. I think I'd be fine with just ingredients. Then lean towards the ingredient style. Or maybe you're like, I'm prepping a combination prep, but I could really use some more full meals. Then maybe you do some batch cooking. So it's about, again, finding what works for you. And a lot of the times this is about experimentation, being honest with yourself, asking yourself where you need the most support, how much time you have to prepare meals, how much time you have to prep, and go from there. So I hope this is helpful when it comes to prioritizing your prep. I know I gave you a lot of questions, and all of these questions and space to consider this is going to be in the printable associated with this episode. So be sure to click that in the show notes. And like I mentioned, I will also include a whole bunch of my favorite meal prep recipes that you can just click over to the blog and grab. And of course, if you want to dig in deeper to the 3 styles of meal prep and really learn how I go into these steps really from A to Z to meal prep and create your own convenience in a way that works for you, then check out my Healthy Mama Meal Prep course. Thank you so much for listening, friends. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I have gotten great feedback from last week's, and I'm really excited to hear what you think of this week's episode. So be sure to find me over on Instagram at Healthy Mama Chris. Join us in the Healthy Balanced Mama Podcast Facebook group. Those links, again, as usual, will be in the show notes, and I will catch you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Healthy Balanced Mama podcast. If you loved it, would you take a screenshot and share it with a friend over on Instagram and tag me in it? It helps me so much to know what you love and are taking away from each episode. If you really loved it, would you hop over to iTunes and give me a star rating and review? Every rating and review helps this podcast be seen and heard by more women who need to hear the message of balance and wellness without deprivation. It's the best free gift you could give me. And as a reminder, the information and opinions on this podcast are meant for education and inspiration only and are not to be taken as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult with a trusted practitioner before making any changes. Have a beautiful day, friend, and I'll see you in the next episode.